Welcome to RC Video Magazine, Volume 7. In this issue, we have a report on the George Myers Memorial Fly-In in Denver, Colorado. We then go to Riverside, California to see Hanno Pretner perform a demonstration flight at the four-stroke rally. Mike Fields reports on the new Goldberg Cub. Ed Nagasone puts it all together in Part 3 of How to Fly Helicopters. We have a video tour of the 50th anniversary Nats. We also will be taking you to the Pylon Racing event at the Nats. And finally, we have a film from NASA on spin test.
We're here at Chatfield Reservoir just outside of Denver, Colorado at the site of the Jeffco Air Modelers Club. It's a beautiful little field here right at the foot of the Rocky Mountains, and we're going to see some incredible flying here at the George Meyer Memorial Fly-In. Ken Wills is talking to Tommy Myers right now, and they'll have the complete story on this unique event.
Tommy, what is the George Myers Memorial Fly-In?
The George Meyer Memorial Fly-In is a meeting of scale modelers from all over the western United States, and it was designed to in memory of my father, because he loved scale models and loved craftsmanship, and it was designed for that reason, and we've had a fantastic turnout here today.
Tell us a little bit about your dad.
Dad was born in St. Louis, Missouri, started working for Curtis Wright in St. Louis as a metalsmith. He decided that if he could build model airplanes and design model airplanes, that he could design a real full-size aircraft. When he designed the airplane, he decided to use a lot of compound curves in the airplane, and the nose itself was all done in sheet metal. And Little Toot was designed and built in 1957, along with an airplane called the Pitt Special that was real popular at that time. And Little Toot was really years ahead of its time when the EAA first got started. Flew it to Rockford, Illinois in 1957 and won the Mechanics Illustrator trophy up there with that first year. Dad flew it from air show to air show. Dad was not an aerobatic pilot. He was a weekend flyer. Therefore, he didn't do a whole lot of close to the ground work with the airplane. But there are people that have flown Little Toot that are capable of doing it. But he was not an aerobatic pilot. He was a builder.
Tell us a little bit about the award that's being presented at this contest.
Okay, the George Meyer Craftsmanship Awards, which we are presenting here today, is the third in a series of awards we're going to be giving away every year. We started giving the award away in Oshkosh 4 years ago. In fact, this year will be the fourth year that we give the Craftsmanship Trophy away. And in Oshkosh, it's called the George Meyer Craftsmanship Award, recognizing outstanding sheet metal workmanship. We gave one away last year at the Nationals for scale model aircraft workmanship. And then today we're giving another one away here for craftsmanship. All the trophies are craftsmanship award because of his ability and ingenuity with the model airplane industry.
Thank you very much, Tommy. Well, let's get started with this contest. We'll go to the flight line now with Sandy Santucci.
But standing right now with me is Paul Samaras of the Jeffco Aero Modelers Club, and he's got a beautiful laser aircraft here, and it's a pretty big plane. You want to tell us a little bit about it?
Right. It's a third-scale laser, similar to the aircraft that they fly at the Tournament of Champions, former Tournament of Champions, before they canceled out on it. Down in Las Vegas, it was designed by Wayne Illery, specifically for the purpose of flying the tournament operations. The airplane is powered by a 3.7 Sachs engine, weighs 22 pounds, covered with monocoat, and The design is outstanding as far as its flying ability is, Sandy. It just flies superbly well. Probably, as models go, aerobatic as far as airplane models are concerned, it has a better aerobatic ability than anything else that I've ever seen in a model airplane.
It's really interesting. What were some of the modifications that were necessary to take it away from the Tournament of Champions status, the way you had it set up for flying there?
Well, this airplane's a little heavy for the tournament. The original tournament airplane could not weigh over 18 pounds. This one weighs 22 pounds and has a big engine in it and a smoke system in it. And so it really would not qualify for the previous Tournament of Champions type thing because of its weight characteristic. Otherwise, it qualifies very, very well. It swings a 2010 prop in our town. When you get into sea level area, it'll swing at 2210. The wing is built in two pieces, and it has an aluminum, inch-and-a-half aluminum shaft that it winds up being the spar of the wing that gives the support to the wing. Goes clean through the center of the fuselage at approximately the balance point, or the high point of the wing characteristic. And then the wing is held down by a screw on this side and a screw on this side that goes into the aluminum tube that holds the wing onto the tube. And of course, the whole thing stays together when it's locked together with two screws.
Is this the kind of weather you like to fly in out here?
Superb. Last night was a little rainy, but this morning, very, very good.
Okay, great. Well, there's always a lot of weather changes whenever you're near Denver, Colorado.
That's for sure.
Get used to that. Well, good luck today.
Thank you very much.
All right, Paul. Back up to you, Ken.
There's 3 little toots here, 3rd scale, and we're going to speak with Don Cully about his little toot. Let's start out with I understand you did the molding for the wheel pants and the cowling.
Yeah, we actually made the mold, or the plug, and then made a mold, and then went ahead and fabricated the cowling, bug eyes, and the wheel pants out of fiberglass.
Okay, it's a beautiful, beautiful airplane, and all 3 look really identical. It'd be great to see these fly in formation. Do you have any plans on formation flying?
Yes, we do. 2 of them have flown, 1 has not, and as soon as we get practiced with them a little bit, we do intend to do some formation flying and stunt flying.
I understand you've flown yours. Can you tell us a little bit about how it flies?
Yes, I have a Sato 270 twin in mine, and on the first flight it really flew well. It's a very responsive airplane, no bad traits at all, and I was real pleased with it, real pleased. Mine weighs about 22 pounds actually, so it's a little lighter than the others, but it really does fly well.
Great. Have you ever seen the full-size fly?
No, I have not, but I'd love to.
Thanks, Don. Let's go down to the runway and see who's flying. That's Dean Lassick, Sopwith Pup. Dean is from Lakewood, near Denver, Colorado.
Great to fly slow. It really pleases the crowd, but it's hard to fly. It's been in many air shows with the Thunderbirds, the Blue Angels, Christian Eagles, and for these contests here, the George Meyer fly-in and the Jeffco fly-ins.
It flies so realistic. Is there some trick to making it do that?
Well, if there was, I wish I knew it. It's just a matter of staying on top of it. You have to use all controls, and you have to be instantly ready to do anything. With this big plane and this wind, you see how we have this roiling wind condition here. The plane has a tendency to wobble back and forth, and you have to be right on top of it to correct for all these little turbulences, I guess. That's it. At slow speed, you have to be right quick. That's all.
Okay.
Okay, I'll run those names by again. Mac McDaniel first, Bill Carpenter second, Tommy Weens third, Greg Corliss fourth, fifth is going to be George Ide, replacing Dean Lathick. Sixth is Tommy Weens, 7, A.J. DeVoris, and 8, Olin Trineri.
Setting up on my downwind leg.
No ailerons, look out!
Back in the pits here with Brian Gates, the pilot of the B-24 that had a little bit of a problem coming in for a landing. What was going through your mind?
Well, I got a little bit, well, not panic, but it was not a comfortable feeling when I moved the aileron stick and realized that it had no aileron control whatsoever. So I switched over and started using the rudder, and somewhat to my surprise, it was very effective. It was able to turn the airplane. Luckily, the ailerons had locked in neutral, so the airplane was flying straight, hands off, but we needed the rudder to turn around and get back to the runway. And I was pretty busy finding the landing gear switch, trying to put the flaps down, and just trying to get lined up on the runway. Wanted to get it down in one piece. Didn't really want to try to make any more turns around the field the way it was handling.
Brian, in a situation like that, does being a commercial pilot, flying the big planes yourself, help you out in those kind of tense situations?
Yeah, I think a little bit because of the, we have training in emergency situations, or we go out and most all of our training is simulated emergencies, engine failures, electrical problems, and so on like that. And you learn they teach you that the most important thing is not to panic. Just, if nothing else, do nothing until you figure out exactly what the problem is, and I think that helps.
Good. You're on the ground for this one, so that was a little easier on your mind, I bet. Okay. Tell us a little bit about the B-24.
Okay, this is a Stafford B-24 built from the Jack Stafford kit. It uses 4 OS 25 size engines. We have retractable landing gear, retractable gun turret, and operating flaps, which, like I mentioned there, I was frantically searching for on landing. I never did find them to get the flaps down.
Is it a little different flying a multi-engined RC model plane?
Oh yeah, it definitely is. The last twin-engine one I built lasted one flight. After takeoff, it was flying around and one engine failed, and I tried to make one extra 360-degree circuit around the airport to check the wheels down, and in that time I was never able to get it back. And that flashed through my mind as well up there, that I didn't want to try to fly it by one time. I just want to turn around and get it on the ground.
And that's just with 2 engines. Now there's 4 engines here, 4 things that could go wrong.
Yeah, you got probably at least 4 times the potential for disaster, and probably more than that.
Okay.
Luckily, I think we haven't had an engine failure yet. I think if one fails, I think it shouldn't be too much of a problem. If we lose more than one, I don't think it's going to fly very well.
Great. Well, do we think we're going to get this plane back up in the air today?
It looks like a pretty good chance today. If not, we'll certainly have it back tomorrow.
We've got some people scouring the hobby shops here in Denver looking for a servo to fit this guy.
Yeah, we need a servo, and we broke one muffler on the landing, and we got to fix that, and we'll be back in business.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot, Brian. Well, from the pits, now we go back to Ken Wells.
Thank you, Sandy. We're speaking with Jerry Van Heeswick. Jerry, can you tell us what kind of aircraft is this?
This is a 1/3 scale model of a Jodel F-12. It uses a Sachs-Dolmer 3.7 engine. It's covered in Soldertex with acrylic enamel, auto paint. Many of the switches and things on the instrument panel work. The navigational lights function from the toggle switch on the panel. The strobe light, I'm working on making it function. The choke for the engine and the engine kill switch are also mounted on the instrument panel. It was a labor of love for me because I'm taking flying lessons in the full-scale version. My next-door neighbor owned it and made me an offer that I couldn't refuse. I built it from the full-scale airplane plans and redrew them to 1/3 scale.
Well, I'm fascinated with the fact that you're flying the real one and you build and fly the model. Do you think that flying and building the model has benefited flying the full size or vice versa?
It's very much a carryover. For example, I was having trouble in doing short field landings over an obstruction in the full-scale airplane because it doesn't have flaps. So I've been practicing those with the model. All the control functions appear to me to be identical. The stall is identical also. When you stall the full-scale airplane, it doesn't brake. If you pull the elevator in very, very slowly, it'll just buffet and it'll fall in a controlled fall of about 600 feet per minute. And the model will do the same thing. And they fly so similarly that I do get a fair amount of carryover, I think. I can practice with the model, then go fly the full scale.
Well, that's fantastic. What a great opportunity. Thanks a lot, Jerry.
You bet, Ken.
We're back on the flight line with Ken Otto of Westminster, Colorado here, and this is his beautiful aircraft. The Skybolt was originally built by Lamar Steen.
This airplane was my attempt to duplicate a full-size airplane in 1/4 size. It performs scale-like, and it'll do all the maneuvers the full-scale airplane will do, and probably some that the pilot couldn't stand, the way I fly. This engine is a 2-cylinder, 4-cycle, 2.7 Sato twin, which is real quiet, relatively powerful, does a good job of flying an airplane.
Okay, back up to you, Ken.
Mr. Gerlitz, tell us about this aircraft.
This is a Bud Newsom 310 Cessna, and it is a 1/4 scale with a wingspan of 10 feet.
What's it powered with?
2 Super Tiger 75s.
Okay, I notice you've got retracts. What kind of retracts are you using on this?
These are homemade retracts, and mufflers are homemade, and wheel hubs.
What's the basic construction technique here?
This here plane's all balsa, plywood construction, and fiberglass with 8 yards of cloth. But if both engines are running correctly, it flies just like a normal plane. If you have one engine give you some trouble, then it starts to get a little hairy.
Have you had that happen yet?
On the first flight, we had one engine hang up on us at 1/4 throttle.
Oh boy, so I understand that landing a twin with one engine can really be a trick.
Yes, we had a lot of fun that day. We got her down one piece, I fixed the engine, and it's been flying ever since.
How old is this airplane?
1 year this month.
How many flights do you have on it?
I have 9 flights.
I noticed that after you took off it was beautiful, good, and then it got windy and the wind shifted a little bit. Did that give you any trouble?
Just for my landing, I have to use the wind to land into.
Notice it rolled on a little ways.
Yeah, you ought to see it without wind.
Okay, Sandy, back to you on the flight line.
We're back behind the flight line with Pat Massey of Pampa, Texas. You want to tell us a little bit about your plane? We know that you've made this totally from scratch, and the engine is of a lot of interest to me.
The airplane was designed by me from small 3-view drawings, and it has the 40 horsepower dummy engine on it, and the cowling with the old cowl latches like the Model T Ford used to have on the hood, and shock struts on the gear. And it's mostly made of hardwoods, one form or another. There's very little balsa wood in it except the wing ribs. A friend of mine, Babe Hall, and I used to fly U-control speed, and we did pretty well. And in our McCoy 60 engines we were using back in those days, we used the old Champion glow plugs. And these, when they would burn out, rather than throwing them away, I kept them. And now they grace the sides of my 40 horsepower Continental dummy engine.
Okay.
And I understand there are people who pay $5 a piece for these. We only paid 75 cents for them new.
Discover the high-flying freedom of the Electra. Nothing else in an electric-powered RC even comes close to the Electra's simplicity, affordability, and performance. The ultimate RC change of pace. The latest advances in RC car technology, combined with years of Carl Goldberg's model design experience, has brought you the Electra. The aerodynamics is based upon the famous Gentle Lady glider, resulting in a very stable, easy-to-fly electric-powered plane. The Electra is very easy to build, too. You'll work from clear, concise plans and instructions that help you breeze through each stage of construction without a hitch. Even if you're a beginner, you'll be able to handle the job successfully. Her special Mabuchi motor, included in the deluxe version, gives you almost 5 minutes of solid climb or light aerobatics on a standard 6-cell pack, and her superb aerodynamics do the rest. You can figure on getting 12 minutes of flight even in dead air. Plus, we'll show you how to install a 3rd channel throttle for an added dimension of control. And with 2 battery packs, you can fly almost indefinitely. For most of us, the dream of carefree electric RC flight was still just a dream. Well, the Electra changes that. If you're ready for the most refreshing experience in RC, there's an Electra kit waiting for you at your dealers now. Let's hear it for freedom.
For the flying demonstration at this year's 4-stroke rally, Hanno Pretner flies his Bud Laser to music. Looks like my flying, only I don't do it on purpose. Now Hanno will be flying the Superfly. This aircraft is one of his own design. It's powered with a Super Tiger 3000 with a tuned pipe. We watched Hanno earlier warm up, and he did things I never knew an airplane could do, so this really should be interesting. Hanno, we've been watching you fly in the demonstrations here today, and I've never seen aircraft do that before, and especially that low, slow-flying knife edge. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about what the secret to that might be.
I fly this one on a big Suprafly, so the secret is a very powerful engine, and another secret is a light plane. So as more light or as lighter the plane is, as easier it is to do the maneuvers, especially I like always for extreme performance. So for example, I fly the knife edge loop, I fly the helicopter spin with this one, I fly the slow knife edge flight and many different maneuvers.
Can you tell us a little bit about the Superfly that Easy has developed?
Yes, the newest model from Easy Model is the Superfly. It's my World Championship winning design, and I feel it's the best design, or it's the best kit whichever was done from my designs. The reason that I say this is because the kit is very light, it's a brand new construction, so that we were able to reach a weight of approximately 7 pounds. So this means the model is able to fly constant speed very nice. I fly this model at the coming World Championships, and the reason for the design was to try that everybody is able to fly with the same model which I will use at World Championships. This means regardless if it's kit number 1, 200 or maybe 1000 and something else, the pilot will have the guarantee that it's really the same model that I fly in competition.
Hanno, I've heard rumors that you practice every day or 3 times a week. You must practice a lot. Can you give us an idea of what it takes to become a level pilot that you are?
It takes a lot of practice, but it's impossible to practice every day. So I try to fly before World Championships, 1 month ahead of World Championships, to fly every day and to make approximately 4 to 5 flights. Not more than 4 to 5 flights, because then you lose concentration, and if I lose concentration I cannot improve anymore.
I also understand you fly mode 1, is that true?
Yes, I fly mode 1 from the beginning, and I also fly the transmitter in a tray, and I think, or I know, that this is better for aerobatic maneuvers, because for example when you have to do corrections, or if you go, for example, in rolling circles with 4, 3, 2, or maybe also with 1 roll, it's easier to correct the plane on its flight path if the aileron and if the elevator is separate. Even if you fly the transmitter in a tray, if you have the transmitter in a tray, then it's better to control the sticks, because I do it just with 2 fingers, so it gives more free movement to switch to switch different switches or buttons, and also to move the sticks properly.
Also, I was just curious, do you use a lot of dual rate and switches and mixing while you're in flight? Do you do any modes, any switching like that?
If I want to fly extremely, yes. My radio has the possibility to have 3 steps on elevator, even on aileron and also on rudder. So for example, I can change the flying characteristics during the flight dramatically, which means with the same plane I can do very smooth World Championship maneuvers, and when I go on high rate, then I can do the funniest maneuver, or I can do all the tricks which I want to do. Even I can couple dual rate with exponential, which gives the possibility to fly the plane even on high rate, to fly it smooth.
Hano, thank you very much. It's really a pleasure to shoot you flying. I've never seen anything like it, and we thank you for talking to us.
I enjoyed.
Yeah, that was dead stick. Fantastic, Hano. Let's hear it for Hano and Brett. Fantastic. That's all I can say. That's good work.
There is a complete program on the 1986 four-stroke rally in Riverside, California, available from Hobby Shack or a Hobby Shack dealer.
McDaniel RC presents the revolutionary Night Starter, pocket-sized power for starting your standard glow engines. The Night Starter is safe and convenient. The unique headlock keeps the Night Starter on the plug, not in the propeller. And you can get 50 starts from one 16-hour charge. Now McDaniel offers an improved model of the Night Starter. The addition of a soldered reinforcing ring at the tip helps prevent stripping out the headlock, providing you with a longer-lasting tool. Remember, the Night Starter is not a wrench, and if used as one, will strip out the headlock. For more information on the Night Starter and other McDaniel RC products, see your local RC dealer.
Hi, I'm Mike Fields. Like it says in the instructions, there's nothing like a Cub. Goldberg has put together for you a nice, easy-to-build, standoff scale model of one of America's most popular light planes. Let's take a look at the inside of this kit and see how they've made this job easier for you. The first thing you'll notice is how much time they spent packaging this kit. The plans appear to be clearly printed, and the wood has been rubber banded together to prevent damage during shipment. All the metal pieces here have been bagged and stapled to the side of the box. And here's something I always like to see, a pre-shaped and notched trailing edge. The one-piece cowl is in its own compartment and has some nice scale detailing on it. Also included here is a preformed windshield and a dummy engine. Last, but not least, a set of full-color decals to put that finishing touch on your Cub. Here, you can see the quality of the die-cut light ply parts. Light ply is a lot stronger than balsa. It is a little more difficult to cut and shape. With this kit, most of the hard work has been done for you already. When you get finished breaking the pieces out, all that is required of you is some light sanding to smooth off the edges. All of the parts have slots and tabs that interlock to help you build a fuselage that is both square and true. I think it was Lou Andrews who first came up with box lock construction, but the folks at Goldberg really have it down to a fine art. The fuselage is first assembled without glue, using rubber bands to hold it together. Then you place it over the top view shown on the plans to get the final alignment. Now you can glue it together. Be careful not to glue the rubber bands to the wood. It makes covering the plane a little harder than it has to be. Goldberg uses a lot of these little interlocking parts, which really takes the work, but not the fun, out of building this plane. The fuselage is built almost entirely from light ply. The stringers are hardwood dowels, and the front cowling is balsa. Goldberg has made liberal use of doublers throughout the plane to reinforce the high-stress areas. The hardware kit is very complete, saving you that 5 or 6 extra trips to the local hobby shop, looking for that bag of screws or blind nuts that should have been there in the first place. The landing gear is preformed and easy to install. A nice touch are the built-in servo rails which run the length of the radio compartment, allowing easy fore and aft adjustment for proper CG location. Well, here it is. Completed fuselage. Starting to look more like a Cub now. As you can see, the string structure is very simple and straightforward. You don't have to go crazy trying to put it together. tail block's formed up really nice and easy if you follow the tips that we gave you in the building tips in volume 3. Already painted the inside yellow. We're getting ready now to turn this thing into a real Cub. Let's move on to the wing and see if it's as easy to build as the fuselage was. Here you can see the basic wing structure. It's the same, simple, straightforward construction that Goldberg has used in their Eagle and Sky Tiger series. They use basswood for the spars and balsa for the sheeting of the ribs. The trailing edge is pre-shaped balsa, but the leading edge is a hardwood dowel. This greatly simplifies shaping one of the most critical areas of the airfoil. The wingtip is a work of art. It uses 3 pieces that interlock like a Chinese puzzle. The assembly shown here is a little out of sequence, but sometimes I get impatient to see just what the wing's going to look like when I'm done. This is a very complete instruction manual. It has step-by-step instructions and photographs to accompany each step. If you follow them, you'll have no problem building this airplane. Well, that's about it. All I have to do is class the center section, and this wing is done. This is a brutally strong wing. It'd probably stand up to even my landings. You know, we didn't go over the empennage on this plane, but it's a very simple, straightforward kind of construction that has a very good scale outline. And when this plane is done, it's going to look like a Cub. For those of you who recognize this Goldberg design, congratulations. It's still a lot of fun to fly. I've got a feeling this Goldberg design is going to be a lot of fun to fly too. Now up front, we have an Enya 64 stroke for power, and we have a Futaba 4-channel radio. And I've used the Dubro Cub wheels that they've come out with just recently. You know, the battery's charged, and I want to see how this thing's going to fly. So let's go on out to the field. Here we are at the Boulder flying site on a brisk 32-degree day. Let's get this Enya warmed up here a little bit before we go for the first flight. Okay, let's see if we can get rid of the butterflies and sweaty palms long enough to get this bird off the ground here. Here we go. Need a little right rudder to counteract the torque on rollout. And she's off. Get her trimmed out a little bit here. Normally I wouldn't do this, but she's flying so steady, we're going to bring her down for a low flyby for the camera here. Now this is flying. Let's pick up a little altitude here and we'll try some mild aerobatics. Let's try a loop first. Looks like I'm a little bit slow here. We'll go right into another one. That's a little better. We'll bring it around, we'll try a roll. Not too bad. Let's bring her down for one more low flyby and settle in for a landing approach. Well, looks like this thing's going to float right on off the end of the runway here. Where's the idle trim? Well, it's always good to see a plane down and in one piece at the end of the first flight.
Hi, this is Ed Nakasone, and welcome to Phase 3 of RC Video Magazine's series on how to fly helicopter. In this series, we will be concentrating on getting you into forward flight and flying the circuit. Before we begin, however, two issues I want to discuss with you at this time before we begin forward flight, and that is ensuring that the gyro is in fact corrected in the proper direction, and also touch on how to correct for improper blade tracking. As far as the gyro is concerned, I want to ensure once everything is set up per manufacturer's instruction that the blade is in fact corrected in the proper direction. Note here that the tail boom is going to your right, but the blade is in fact increasing in pitch in the opposite direction. This is very important to check out prior to getting into an actual hover configuration. As far as blade tracking is concerned, we want to ensure that both blades are in fact flying in the same plane off each other to ensure that the helicopter is in fact flying smoothly. Before we begin, both blades have different colored tip, a black tip and a red tip. This will aid you as far as blade tracking in flight is concerned. Get the helicopter up into a solid hover. Have a friend assist you if necessary, or just look at the blades to ensure that you can determine which blade is in fact out of track, if it is out of track. Here I note that I deliberately set the blades out of track approximately one blade width. In this case here, we noted that basically the black blade was in fact flying lower as compared to the red blade. The question now is which way to correct. Do I bring the black blade up or the red blade down? I prefer to do this, however, I prefer to have my throttle helicopter flying at the half throttle point on the transmitter. Therefore, in this case, say that the aircraft is picking up above the half throttle point. Therefore, it tells me that I need to increase my pitch. Therefore, my black blade needs to come up to meet the red blade. And I'll do this per my manufacturer's instruction by turning on these ball links here. Once the adjustment have been corrected or done in the proper direction, we'll get the aircraft back up into a solid hover to ensure and check if the blades are in fact in proper track. In this case it does, and please note how much smoother the aircraft actually flies. Before we get into forward flight, there's several things we need to accomplish, and this is one of them is setting the aircraft into a nose-heavy configuration by placing weights in the forward portion of the aircraft and checking it out when the aircraft is about half tank full. Lift the aircraft at the flybar and note approximately 2 to 3 degrees forward tilt of the aircraft. Before we begin the forward flight exercises, however, I want to ensure that safety is paramount in your mind at all times. Ensure that the area is free of all onlookers and any overhead obstacles that you might run into. Now, 2 exercises we need to accomplish before actually getting into forward flight and flying the circuit. The first one is to aid you as far as getting into the forward transitional lift configuration. That is, we get the aircraft into a solid 4 to 5 feet hover and move the elevator, push the elevator forward, letting the aircraft move forward and pulling it back ever so slightly and holding it into a hover approximately 8 to 10 feet. We bring it back down, we walk up to the aircraft, we push the elevator ever so slightly into the wind. Now we pull back just gradually and let the aircraft rise up, just get the feel of it. This is how we should get the aircraft into a forward transition. You want to ensure that you continue these exercises until you feel comfortable with it to hold it in there. Now, to help you as far as the landing approach, we do it the opposite. We do an exercise the opposite way. That is, we get the aircraft into a high hover, approximately 8 to 12 feet, and we release or pull back on the collective and throttle and let the aircraft just settle down, and we'll increase the throttle to hold it into a solid hover again. Again, get it high. Now release the throttle and collective, steady, not too much. Now pull back elevator, just slightly increase power right here and hold a solid hover, approximately 4 to 5 feet. Get the aircraft up again. Note the different configuration of perspective from your point of view. Release the throttle and collective. Now pull back elevator ever so slightly and increase power and hold. I want you to do this exercise until you feel very comfortable before proceeding on into the actual forward flight and flying the circuit. Again, always bear in mind safety is number one. Clear of all onlookers and free of any overhead obstacles. Now, I talked to you in the past about getting these two exercises, the circle hover around you and the figure eight, down solid before proceeding on. The reason being is the first exercise, as far as getting you into forward flight and flying a circuit, we will begin by flying the circle hover. The attempt here is to ensure that you are comfortable with the aircraft. What we're going to do is get the aircraft flying in the circle hover, but making the circle larger, simultaneously getting the aircraft flying higher. Just getting it around you, flying the circle larger, getting the aircraft higher. Here, you'll note that you have to hold in a little left trim just to keep the aircraft flying around in forward flight. Do this until you feel very comfortable. Make the circle as large as you want to, but being able to control it. The attempt here is get the feel of how the aircraft flies. Now, to set up for the landing approach, all we do is just the opposite way. We'll get the aircraft slowing down into the wind again. Here we go. And we'll make the circle smaller until you're back into the same configuration as the circle hover that you should be very familiar with by now. And set up for a normal landing and bring the aircraft down into a nice soft landing, and above all, rest. That's from the circle hover. The next one, we will get you into flying the circuit from the basic figure eight configuration. Here the wind is from my left, therefore we will get the aircraft into a solid hover and tilt her over just as the exercise you did previously, and fly the basic small figure eight at first, then gradually get into figure eight larger and larger until we're actually flying a large figure eight circuit in front of us and over us. Here the figure eight is getting larger. Now what I'm doing is just pulling back ever so slightly on the elevator just to bring the aircraft up, and note how the nose heavy configuration brings the aircraft just down and flies straight and level. Here again, you'll probably be holding in left tail rotor control, so you might have to trim for this. And note, just pull back the elevator ever so slightly and enjoy the scenery at the same time. Who said you can't fly helicopters at altitude above 8,000 feet? Boy, she's a smooth flying bird here. Pull back elevator ever so slightly, put in tail rotor control, there you go, bring it right on back. Fly this circuit here till you feel very comfortable, always keeping an eye on your fuel tank. And we'll set up for the landing approach by gradually slowing the aircraft down until we can make another small figure 8 where we feel comfortable with those normal small figure 8 that you've flown in the previous exercises. And just set up gradually for your basic landing approach here. Slow and easy. And there you have it, getting you into forward flight and flying the circuit. So right now, I just want you to sit back and relax and enjoy this scenery, and this is what flying a helicopter is all about. So until the next time, just sit back, relax, practice these exercises, and don't forget, break a blade.
Thanks for making Zap the #1 adhesive system in America.
Well, welcome to the 50th anniversary Nats. We're down at Lake Charles, Louisiana this year. A hot and sticky place, but a great place to celebrate a 50th anniversary, the golden anniversary of AMA. When the Nats started way back in the dark ages, it was 60 times ago that we had the original Nats, and it consisted of just a few people, just a few events. And since that time, with the growth of the sport, and we are experiencing an 11% growth rate this year, we've evolved into a national championship that has 75 different events, and it attracts hundreds of people each and every year. Free flight, control line, radio control, and of course, as we all know, radio control is the fast-growing segment of the sport. But all of these events that used to take place in a long weekend now take 8 days to complete. There are so many things that have to be considered when we select a Nats site. The availability of 3 good sites for radio control events, the size of a good site for free flight, and of course a nice indoor arena or similar building for the indoor people. So the Nats has grown, and the Academy membership this year is also growing. We've exceeded 110,000 people. We have more than 2,000 chartered clubs around the country, and we're looking for a total membership figure this year of almost 115,000 people. So we're very pleased, and it shows that model aviation is a sport that can attract people from all walks of life. Our membership runs all the way from schoolboys to housewives to astronauts, doctors, lawyers, Indian chiefs, you name it. It's a real cross-section of American society.
In recognition of the 50th anniversary of the AMA Nationals, we would like to take you on a video tour of the historic 50th Nats. We will briefly visit all but a few areas of competition. The greatest number of contestants are registered in the RC categories and certainly draw the largest crowds of spectators. But just for the fun of it, we would like to present in this program the amazing variety of things that fly and compete at the Nats. We will end our tour at the Pylon Racing site, where we will begin our report on this area of RC competition, otherwise known as Go Fast and Turn Left.
We're at the site of the pylon racing, and this is Pete Waters. He's Vice President of District 7. Pete, can you tell us a little bit about the types of racing we're going to be seeing here?
Well, what's going on right now is FAI, the international class, where you run straight fuel, and in fact you can just use 3 servos. Tomorrow we shall start off with quarter midget, which is a 0.15 cubic inch engine, and they'll be turning high RPM, almost up to 23,000, and the speeds will be quite high too. It's a shorter course than this and a lot smaller aeroplane, but very pretty aeroplanes, quarter midgets. And then the cream of the crop is Formula One. Well, I would say the most beautiful aeroplanes built at the Nationals will be there. They are pretty much scale, just like quarter midget is, and you'll see some that will be destroyed, but they will reach speeds close to 160 miles an hour. And they run high nitro fuel with some of the other elements thrown in, like propylene oxide as an oxidizer, and they change things according to the day, burn a plug of flight.
Amazing. You mentioned earlier that the reason that they make the plane so beautiful, put so much work into the finish, is to jockey for position and takeoff.
Yes, with the times being so close together now in Formula One, minute 9 seconds, minute 10 being quite common, the advantage of taking off first almost guarantees you a win. So to get off first, you have to have the prettiest airplane that's judged the prettiest for the day, and that's how the heats are set up.
Grabbing nice. Very nice.
We're talking with Dub Jet, currently, as far as we can tell, holding first place in quarter midget. Can you tell us a little bit about racing this type of aircraft?
Well, Ken, there's a number of kinds of races. We have actually 3 airplanes. One is called Quickie, which you're not seeing today, the kind of thing that most of the club members would have. Second is quarter midget, which is this airplane using a 15 engine, has to be stock, and a stock fuel, approximately 15%. And then the big ones, Formula One, the very fast ones that is basically an unlimited kind of event. Now, what we try to do is race as many airplanes as we possibly can during the day in a number of heats, set up such that we race either 3 or 4 airplanes at a time, with a number of rounds such that you race all the competitors that can possibly be grouped together. The race itself is 10 laps over a closed triangular course. In the case of quarter midget, is approximately 450 feet long. The height of the triangle and the base is 100 feet. In the larger event, it is 608 feet by 100 feet, which works out to something like 2.5 miles. The airplanes cover the course in about 1 minute and 20 seconds in almost every case for all events.
What kind of miles per hour does that work out to be?
Well, in that case of an average, it's probably about 90 miles an hour for this particular airplane, going up to 120 to 130. Top speed on the course, however, is considerably faster than that. The larger ones will hit close to 180 miles an hour, with this one going about 120 miles an hour.
Is it more plane against plane, or is it plane against the clock?
In one event, the international event, it's plane against the clock. However, in the American events, it is plane against plane. You can be very slow and win a race and get the same number of points that the guy that was very fast in the previous heat. So it's extremely important that you be very consistent, that you not turn inside the pylons, which is a penalty, and that you win every single race regardless of how fast you go.
Deb, can you tell me a little bit about this particular aircraft?
Yes, this is a scale model of an airplane called a Little Tony, which is a Formula One racer, a full-scale Formula One pylon racer like you'd see in Reno, Nevada. The actual aircraft is approximately 25 feet in length, so it's a fairly small full-scale aircraft. This particular model weighs 3.5 pounds, which is the minimum weight that's allowed in this event. It has a foam-constructed wing covered with 3/32 balsa wood and then covered with a monocoque type covering. The fuselage is molded from fiberglass and the tail surfaces are balsa, painted with epoxy resin.
Starter is Karen, my wife. Come on out, Karen. All right. Karen's done this before. I think most of you guys know her. She worked here last year. Pit boss is Bob Brown, standing right here. He's going to be calling up the heats. That's his little job. At number one, I got Jerry Denton down there. He's down there working. I was going to introduce him. He ain't here. So, firstly, I want to talk about best finish this year. There's an awful lot of good airplanes up there, and it was awful hard to pick something. But trying to go by the rule book that says excellence and finish and craftsmanship and all this thing, this year's winner is Freddie French. Okay? And I'll tell you, there was a lot of good airplanes up there. And,
Okay, we're talking with Karen Yeager. Karen, you're the starter, and I was going to ask you how you do, what it is you do out there on the line.
Okay, well, the job of a starter is they identify the airplane so the guys at number one can see what each airplane looks like so they can watch for it. And then you drop the flag when the clock expires, and you basically just make sure the races run right. You have a radio, and each one of the pylon judges has a radio also, and they call in cuts to you. And it's your job to see that the cut gets posted on the appropriate board.
Explain a cut.
A cut is, at number one, there are two ways to get a cut. You can fail to go the distance, which in other words, not get to the pylon, turn short of it, or you can fail to encircle it. you can go far enough but not go around it. And at 2 and 3, a cut is when you're inside of it. And if you cut once, you have to do an extra lap, which is 11. And if you cut twice, you get a 0.
Okay, I also noticed it's a really intense race, and also it's really intense, the communication and running of it.
It is, because it's very important. If you have a cut, you have to do an 11th lap, or if you are racing and there's a plane in front of you, it's very important if you know that plane has a cut, because if it does, in essence, it's not on the same lap that you're on. It has to do an extra one. And you, as a pilot, you don't want to, be chasing or trying to catch an airplane that's not even on the same lap with you. So it's very important for the pilots to, know right away. And also because if you have one cut, a lot of the pilots back off, which, fly a bigger course and try not to double cut so they don't get a 0.
Jerry, I don't know what you're going to do. I'm going to explain this one. We got some blue on the rudder. We're going to call this one blue, all right? Lower it down. The nose is all blue, both cheek houses is blue. The fuse and the tail has got blue on it, all right? It has round wingtips. This one we're going to call yellow. The tail's all yellow. It's got no cheek cowl. I know you'll never see that, but I'll just tell you, all right? So turn around. Guys, can you see this one's yellow, and the one with the all blue nose is blue.
Okay, we're talking with Dave Shadell. He's one of the top competitors in Formula Pylon racing. Dave, tell me a little bit, I know you work your own engines. Can you give us a quick rundown on what it is you do to them?
Well, basically the engine is manufactured in Italy by Super Tiger, and it's a good sound basic design, very much like the early Chryslers that were used in full-scale drag racing, which were heavily modified. And what we do is a disassembly of the engine, chroming of parts, changing of clearances, and generally adding about another horsepower to the engine. These engines will develop pretty close to 3 horsepower.
What kind of fuel do you use?
Well, basic fuel mixture is anywhere from 50 to 70% nitromethane. The balance is alcohol and oil.
What's it like to compete in these races?
It can get awfully expensive with fuel cost at $30 a gallon and airplane cost, well, you're looking at roughly $1,000 flying around in the air. If they hit the ground, it's expensive. If they don't, it can be an awful lot of fun.
Is there any technique to beating the competition? Where does the competition lie in the actual flying technique?
Well, I think that most people are pretty well matched horsepower-wise anymore. You can buy a competitive airplane already built from a variety of people. You can buy a competitive engine. I think basically it's experience. This is my 11th season of pylon racing, and if you've got a little bit of talent to start with, you can do pretty well.
When you're in the air flying, and are you aware of what the other aircraft are doing? Are you chasing, or are you trying to overtake aircraft?
Well, you basically fly your own race. You do see the other aircraft, but your caller is probably the most important person that you have out here. He monitors the cuts on other people and can tell you where you are in the race at any given time. If you're coming up on somebody, go down, go up, go outside of them, etc. Because the airplanes are traveling at 175, 180 miles an hour at the end of the #1 straightaway. So you have to know. Basically just experience.
Okay, we're talking with Jessica Therrett. Where are you from, Jessica?
I'm from South Windsor, Connecticut.
How did you get started flying competitively in racing?
In racing, I started about 4 years ago. I've been flying since I was 12 years old, and my father races around our area.
How old are you now?
18.
What aircraft are you flying?
This is a Tony. It was built by Jim Shinohara, Gary Hover, and Dave Shadell also worked on it, all from the Samurai Racing team. It was a gift, actually.
A gift? How fantastic. Was it for your birthday?
No, actually. It was just out of the blue. They built it for me. I think I'm on probation now to see how well I can fly it.
Pylon racing is a very unique sport. The tension, the intense competition, and action of pylon racing is certainly not for everyone. Those who compete every season are a very rare group of model aviators. We asked racers what other RC they fly. Nancy Rutherford's response was typical.
Do you fly any other RC besides race?
No.
It's race or nothing.
Yeah, I practice with a Prather Panther, but that's all. I just do that. I fly some events in England because I lived there for 5 years, and I've been flying FAI there and a thing called Club 20, and those are really fun to fly. But that's all I do is race. That's it.
Hazel Sigg's Clipped Wing Cub, America's all-time favorite plane. Build this beautiful model of a truly outstanding airplane. This highly aerobatic plane is really a joy to fly. It is as smooth, stable, and responsive as the big one, and basic aerobatic maneuvers such as loops, rolls, spins, and snaps are easy. The Morrissey Bravo, copied at quarter scale in the quality Sig tradition. Everyone who has flown this Bravo remarks about the easygoing and smooth flying characteristics. The model is stable, forgiving, and can give a good account of itself in aerobatics. It'll get you into faster company without scaring you to death in the process. The new Cadet Senior, known as the hands-off trainer, flies along so slowly and gently that just about anyone can handle it. Even experts get a big charge out of the unique qualities of the Cadet Senior. For those of you who already have the fine Sig products, take the video tour of Sig and see what makes Sig unique in the model industry.
In our next issue, we're going to see a most unusual RC project. George Vogelsang has built an incredible Comet powered with a 50-pound thrust Pulse jet. Some very unique engineering has been incorporated in this model, and you'll see it fly at speeds well in excess of 200 miles per hour. We'll also be visiting some scenic slope soaring sites across the U.S. where RC aircraft ride a standing wave of air. So be watching for these reports and much more in our Volume 8.